Hello and welcome to the Home Turn YouTube channel. It is your presenter Josh back again with another video. So today we'll be looking at all the action from Saturday's card at Newbury and then the jumps racing obviously at Ayr for the Scottish Champions Day. I appreciate everyone that supports the channel and likes the videos. If you do continue to enjoy our content, please do like and subscribe as we'll be having more videos over the coming weeks, especially with the classics coming up on the flat very soon. We'll jump straight into the action today. So we're going to start off just focusing on the first three races at Newbury, with the first one being the 130, and that is the Dubai Duty Free Final Surprise Stakes, which was a mile and a half contest. This is a Group Three um, on the flat. The favourite is the 13-8 shot Arrest for Jonathan Gosden, and then we've got the ever so consistent Hamish for William Haggis, second favourite in the market. Now, it's going to be an interesting race. I think with Hamish, he is obviously very consistent over these kind of intermediate, not intermediate, the mile and a half and above trips. He stay in kind of more contests. But he is now an 8-year-old. He's getting on. He won all four of his races last season. And these are the kind of races he typically mops up these kind of Group Three listed contests. This is really his level. He is 3 from 3 actually. First time out of the season. I think you definitely want to watch in this. Because he's very consistent, as I said, over this kind of contest and these trips, and he's very good first time out of the season as well. He's just not got a great newbie record. I think he's ran here 2 or 3 times and he's lost every single time. He has been a short price favorite 2 of those as well. Um, so that's why I'd be a little bit put off him from a betting perspective. And I do think a rest, or having to give a rest £3. Obviously, the former Derby hopeful for the Gosens last season, but it did have some mutual form in Group 3 and 2 level as well. I think it's going to be a little bit too maybe much to do for Hamish, especially when he's getting on and the rest is only going to be a 4-year-old. I'm not necessarily sure about anything else really in the field. Obviously, Al Kareem probably run a good race for Colbert, but I don't think he's quite to the level of the front two in the market. I'd be surprised if Arrest doesn't get the job done, but I just think he's a little bit short. I think Hamish will be the one to watch, but I just don't think his newbie form really adds up. I do think giving Arrest £3 is going to be maybe a little bit too much for his older legs. So moving on then to the 205, which is the Fred Darling Stakes. It is a Group 3 contest as well. And this is quite interesting now because obviously a lot of 2-year-old fillies moving up into 3-year-old company now, a year older, a year's or an extra summer sun on their back. Just kind of, it's not always easy to kind of get a gauge on these first time out because some will train on, some just won't. So especially with fillies as well, they can be a little more temperamental. So it's harder to kind of gauge. Favourite at the moment is 11-4 shot Relief Rally for William Haggis. Under new ownership now, obviously was with a double green, but they sold off, and with the same training connection still. Ran quite a lot last season. I think it was maybe 5 times last year, which is I'd say quite a lot normally for a 2-year-old, and I'd be slightly concerned about maybe her training on just because of how busy her schedule was as a 2-year-old. That can take quite a lot out of them. But she did mop up some very good prizes with the last time, with the kind of crown jewel in that being the Group 3, so the Group 2 Lawther Stakes at York, when she beat Cherry Blossom, Symbology and Beautiful Diamond as well. So that was really good form, and she ran ultra consistently, was 4 or 5 last season as well. Um, Having won a Group 2, there's nothing really to knock about that. But she's stepping up in trip as well this time, and whether she's as rock solid a favourite, I think would have to remain to be seen. I think with form, all known form in the book, she probably should be, but it's just hard to necessarily say with these 2-year-olds going to 3-year-olds now. Regal Jubilee for the Gosling team as well was second favourite at 7-2. It's drifted out a bit. Was initially favourite at 5-2, but it's drifted out quite significantly. I'm not massively sold on her. She only has 3 runs under her belt. She flopped first time out over a mile at Newmarket last September, and then won a pretty old bog standard race, Phillies race at Windsor. But was very bog standard before winning a listed company at Newmarket to end her season last year um, on heavy ground. I'm not sure what she necessarily beat that day either. And obviously the ground is probably going to be good soft here. I don't think she's necessarily going to get the ground that she would want. But obviously time will tell. It is an interesting race though because you've got the likes of, I'm trying to say this right, Folgaria, trained by Marco Botti of 92. She's a five-time winner, 5 of 5 over in Italy, won at the San Siro in a Group 2 there last time out, and also won at Campanelle as well in listed fillies race on heavy ground. I think she'll enjoy a bit of cutting the ground as well. She won on soft. The Group 2 was on soft, so she may want a little bit more cutting the ground than this, but she has won on good ground as well over in Italy. It's just interesting to see. You can't really get a gauge on what that form is going to be like and how that reads. But it's just an interesting contender in there. I think not necessarily from a betting perspective, but just one to watch for the Marco Botti team. And then the one I do think is going to be of interest, and I think will run a big race. 6 to 1 is a bit short now. Has come in from 8 to 1. It's Star of Music for Richard Hughes. He gave her a pretty nice um, note in his kind of stable tour with Matt Chapman the other day on at the races. Um, I think she'll run a better race. I think he believes. I think she will train on as well as 3-year-old. Um, I just think she's going to outrun her odds potentially here. Um, Form doesn't really glow or jump off the page. There's a lot of third at Salisbury on debut for being third at Newbury in a pretty nice group two, sorry, class two maiden stakes here before she run a really sorry won a Kempton maiden very impressively. Obviously, it's not massively foremost right home about, but she won that by 7.5 lengths. Did that really well, and then came back to Newmarket on soft ground and was third in the Group 3 fillies race. And I just think she's of interest at 6 to 1. Um, Obviously coming on from her 2-year-old campaign, she wasn't massively over campaigned like something like a really Frey. She was ran 4 times, so maybe the experience will help, or maybe it won't. Not necessarily sure. We will find out. I just think at 6 to 1 she could be interesting, but it wouldn't be a betting play for me. Now, the one from Newbury that I will mention, I'm going to have a punt on it and we'll put up as a tip, will be in the 240, which is the Greenham Stakes, and that is Mr Sketch 10 to 1 each way for William Buick, and then the Eve Johnson Horton Yard. The reason I like this is again it's another one of these races where they're coming from 2-year-olds into the 3-year-old season, so you don't necessarily know how they're going to go. This is in the Colts race. Um, I like Mr Sketch. He's very lightly campaigned as a 2-year-old. He's only ran 3 times on course. He and has run twice at Newbury, so will have course form. And that they were both over 6 furlongs. One was on heavy ground in a Group 2 in a really hot race in the Mill Reef behind. There's only a length and a half behind a Ray. She had a lot day, I thought, and was only just held towards the line. I think will definitely stay. His sire is Territories. He was second in the 2000 Guineas in 2015, and then went on to win a Group 1 at Deauville, I believe, or Longchamp in France over the mile. So I think will have the breeding to stay, and like his father, well, like his son was very lightly campaigned. Shall I say so? Territories as when he was coming up was very lightly campaigned as a 2-year-old. Had kind of just hit the crossbar a lot of the 2-year-old, placed in the top level company, but not quite got his head in front, and then went on as a 3-year-old and won a Group 3 first time out at Longchamp before coming second in the Guineas, and then winning a Group 1 at Deauville, and then going on to placing a Group 1 after that. So I think in his breeding suggests he may well train on quite well and will stay the extra trip. I just can see him running a really big race. He showed a lot of promise as a 2-year-old, and obviously having William Buick on his back is always going to help. I think in his breeding, it just would suggest that he's going to be a very nice 3-year-old prospect, and I think we'll enjoy Newbury as well because he's got the course form. So I think he's going to be an interesting one at 10 to 1. I think he'll run a big race and definitely outrun those odds. Because if you look at the rest of the field as well, you got the likes of Zoom, the favourite 2-1 for Ralph Beckett. Sorry, 2 to 1 for Ralph Beckett. Ran 3 times again as a juvenile, but I think is going to want heavier ground. Best form has come at Newmarket on heavy, and then some Cloud on heavy in a listed race. It's going to be the sort of thing. It's going to be a little bit too sharp for him potentially. Then you got like a Ballymount boy at 15 to 2. He's drifted out as well, so it's 13 to 2 out to 15 to 2. I'm not massively keen on Ballymount boy. I think was over campaigned for me personally as a 2-year-old, and that may show um, in his 3-year-old season. Uh, that's also not also to be said, but I think the other one to mention would be Army Ethos, who's slightly been pushed out as well from 5 to 1 and 17 to 2 best price. But only ran two times on the 2 year old, but then had ran at Newcastle in the weather in March in a what we used to suggest to be a prep race. This it was 2 for 9 favourite on that day and was beaten pretty convincingly. Was not massively impressed there. Was obviously second at Royal Ascot behind River Tiber before that. Wasn't seen since then, and that was a pretty disappointing comeback run for his 3 year old campaign. I'm a bit windy on him personally. I think the one to note is of worry James's Delight actually did beat Mr Sketch on debut at Newbury. Had went into a bit of the wilderness for a bit before coming back at Pontefract on heavy ground over 6 furlongs in April and winning that Class 3 handicap, but has been backed in from 50 to 1 to 16 to 1. Um, I and obviously it was only ran 18 days ago, so maybe I'll look to be a prep for this if he's been gambling him quite significantly. But I still think Mr. Sketch is going to be a better horse than him. And I'm hoping he's going to come on significantly from his 2 year old year and go very, very, very close in this. So for me, that my tip for the Newbury meeting on Saturday has got to be Mr. Sketch in the 240 in the Greenham Stakes. And then so now moving on to Air, we're gonna look across the card really. I've only really got one tip for this. I'm going to mention two in the Scottish National. For me, I'll just let it get out of the way first. I think the my nap of the day has got to be Favour and Fortune in the Scottish Champion Hurdle. He's now 11 to 2. He's gambled in all the way from 16 to 1, which I would like to say I am on. That was on Monday, Tuesday on at 16s and then 10s. He's now into 11 to 2 second fab behind the Dan Skelton trained Luo de Sud at 4 to 1. Obviously, Luo de Sud coming from placing in the county hurdle at Cheltenham Festival and then also running a massive race in the Betfair hurdle. I really like Load de Sud especially on softer heavy ground. This is going to be soft ground, probably getting better as well as the day goes on. But I think he's been quite heavily campaigned this season, and that's two big runs, pretty quick after another, being the Betfair hurdle on heavy ground, and then champion the county hurdle on heavy ground as well. I think he may have a potential to blow out on this personally. I think Favour and Fortune is really interesting. Obviously, coming out of Noah's Company, was the best of the British home in the Supreme 6th of 11th. He doesn't jump necessarily the best. Hopefully, he will have scratched up on that a little bit. I think maybe the pace of the Supreme didn't help that in that race specifically, and he clearly got a decent enough engine to get himself home on the heavy ground there as well, the soft heavy ground there as well. I think stepping back into handicap company, they're going to be a touch slower pace wise, and I think that will help him out as well. Maybe in a bigger field, also concentrating. But before that, he obviously started the season over hurdles really impressively, winning at Hereford and then Wetherby on heavy, well, good and heavy ground. So he's very ground versatile as well, which is brilliant for this because he's not necessarily going to know what we're going to get. I think it's going to be soft pushing into good soft into better ground as well as the weekend goes on. Um, Won that both races very, very convincingly before stepping up to Grade One company at Aintree, where in the old Tolworth, when he was second to Nicky Henderson and Django Bay. And he was down 2 lengths that day and ran a really, really impressive race. I thought, especially on heavy ground, which I'm not sure he massively loved. I think he wants it in between that. Obviously, Django Bay's gone on since Frank. That probably have to say, even regardless of the state of Nicky Henderson's form, he's placed 3 times since. Once in the City Banks, then obviously in that Group Two at Kelso, and then ran a really, really good race at Aintree from second at a handicap hurdle as well. Um, and since then as well, he ran against Fun. We only went down half a length to her at Exeter on heavy ground again. Fun has won since, and he was giving her, I think it was £9 that day. So it's definitely one to take out of the race, I think. Um, and I just can see him off a mark of 138 having a lot more up his sleeve than some of these other these are most of the rest of these are near season handicappers. I don't think Rabeau's really like the ground and he's been going on the go a lot this season. And the rest of them, First Street is a really handicap horse now. You've got lots of Florida Dream, Westport Cove, Alpha Dill. These are all handicap level horses. Ethnic Fizz, even Ballystock. They are just handicappers. And I think this is a potentially graded level horse. I just think he's going to have a little bit too much of a sleeve for this. And the mark of 138, who's only going to be running for 11 stone 2, is massively favourable for him. regardless of the ground conditions, I think he's going to go very, very close. And I think 11-2 is still a brilliant, brilliant price to be getting on board for a win. So for me, Favour And Fortune is my nap of the day at 11-2. But I'm going to run through the rest of the card. Obviously, it's interesting because you've got the likes of a lot of Willie Mullins, which was coming over, like Dan Skelton, and obviously Paul Nicholls got there and wying for the Trainers Championship. Um, I'm going to look just through the Scottish National as well. I mean, it's a really interesting race. I think Spanish Harlem now is actually 8-4, 8-11, so 8-1 favourite with Git Maker. I think Git Maker for me personally is of interest. I'd be very, very keen on him. Obviously, having that Kim Muir form being franked by I don't know the way they're thinking he was second in that day. He's going to appreciate a bit of softer ground as well and a trip. But I think he also goes on good ground. So with it drying out as well, I think that's going to play to his favour. He's only off a mark of 130, sorry, 133. Only a pound for that really well good run in the Kimby, and obviously he hadn't bumped into a grade one level horse that day. He would also the rest of them. I think he'll enjoy the trip. And the other one for me as well is got to be Mr Vango for the Brad Stocks. It would depend necessarily on the ground because I think he wants it on the softer, the heavier side. I just think obviously coming off a pretty decent run actually in with all the things we said in the National Hunt Chase. Obviously, Corbett's Cross again has probably gone on to frank that form. Um, will appreciate the trip. Obviously, won over a similar trip at Exeter as well. I can just see him running a big race. If it was to be really, really soft, and he's 16-1 as an each way price. Um, so for me, in the Scottish National, it's got to be Git Maker. And probably Mr Vango just have a pick. 4 miles as a slog, so hopefully Git Maker does get it. But I think Mr Vango would definitely get the trip. Even if there's even more rain, that would be helpful for his chance, but not necessarily for Git Makers. The other race we wanted to preview was it's not necessarily the one going to be having a betting one, but I just think it's an interesting race. It's the 410, which is it's actually a handicap hurdle. It's class three, but you got the likes of Welcome to Cartrees here, say top of the market with Masaccio, Major Fortune, and then you've got kind of Chosen Witness and I Love Day down the field. I just think the front two are really interesting. Obviously, Welcome to Chartres has won or was placed in the River Don on good ground over 3 miles. So has the trip experience and ran a good race there behind Kerry Hill. The issue is I think he wants better ground, and if this is going to be soft, it's going to be potentially struggling. I think Masaccio stepping up in trip is really, really interesting. Obviously, coming out of the Challow hurdle at Newbury, obviously the Jukebox Man has franked that form since then. And he's had enough time, I think, in between his races where he's going to have the time to recover. I think obviously ran a pretty in a very very easy novice hurdle. He wanted to prep for this in February, and I just can see him that with a 2 mile 5 on soft ground. I can see him staying. I think he wants a trip, and um, I think he's actually going to take quite a lot of beating in this. It's just a difficult one to back. I don't think I'd be putting him off the tip, but I just think 7-2 is really, really interesting. He's been from 5-1. I think Alan Kane may have quite a big day on his hands. Obviously, Major Fortune for Dan Skelton as well is interesting. 5 from 9 over hurdles, but I think he's a handicap level horse, whereas Masaccio and potentially Welcome to Carter is a graded level contenders potentially in the fences or later on down the road in their careers. So for me, the two tips of the day, you've got to be Mr. Sketch in the 240, the Greenham Stakes at Newbury. I think each way is going to be a really interesting play. And then Favour And Fortune at 11-2 in the Scottish Champion Hurdle. And obviously with the two for the Scottish Grand National, we've got Mr. Vango at 16-1 and then Git Maker at 8-1. Best prices. So I appreciate everybody that's taking the time to watch the video. Hopefully, we get some winners on board from the video itself, like we did in our last one with Aintree. Obviously, we had Delta Workplace in the Grand National for us. John Bond won as well, and Founder 50 obviously won with Lana for the meeting one as well at 2-1. So it wasn't a terrible meeting at Aintree. And hopefully we can pick up where we left off here, but we get into the classic season from the flat there. So I appreciate everyone's time watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please do like and subscribe to the channel. And as I said, there'll be more content coming soon. Cheers. Bye.